What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another Retro Yu-Gi-Oh video and back with another Frog format video. This will probably be the only actual gameplay video I show off for Frog format. As I mentioned in the guide for the format, it's not really the best if you don't like queuing up against FTKs a lot. So I held a tournament in Frog format a little while back on the YGO from Zero Discord server, and because I wanted to get in a fair amount of test games, I figured I would run the Frog FTK deck here. This was a list from the time. This was Christopher Schwartz's list, and I figured I'd test it out, see how it goes, and sort of get a feel for the combos of the deck. Now, I did not expect to do that well in this tournament because, it's a tough combo deck to play sometimes, or at least that was my perception going into it. And knowing like when to pivot from going for your FTK to just making a board that is difficult for your opponent to deal with, that can be a bit of a tricky skill testing sort of thing. Knowing how to side properly against various decks, that can be a bit of a tricky skill testing sort of thing. So I went into this thinking like, okay, I'd play a couple games, just get sort of my feet under me, and be prepared to have videos later on where I actually played the deck and played it at a relatively good level. But I'm here to tell you that the deck is actually, I mean, it is difficult, don't get me wrong, but in order to just like win at a base level, like if you just go in and you're like, okay, can I pull off the FTK? The FTK alone is pretty standard. I'm not going to say it takes no level of skill, like figuring out the exact lines, because there are some tricky things about knowing how to set up your poison draw frogs, so that way you can send them from your field to the graveyard with swap frog to get draws. Like, that is a bit tricky. But I will say that overall, like after you do the combo a couple times or like do some test hands with the deck, I think it is actually surprisingly easy to get that FTK off the ground. And so I actually did like relatively well in the event. It was a double elimination tournament because we obviously did not get enough to make for a healthy Swiss bracket. And I actually made it relatively far. So I actually have a fair amount of games to show you in that tournament. And we'll also be talking about the finals of that tournament, which I was not a part of. I didn't make it that far. But I think that game is also interesting to show off. So if you're unfamiliar with this Frog FTK deck, this is a deck that's legal in the August 2010 SJC Indianapolis, which Frog format is based around. And basically the goal of the deck is to, cycle through all your monsters in deck basically with Substode and set up some Rodent Totems in the graveyard, because Rodent Totem can banish a frog monster from your graveyard, come back, and then if you tribute it with something like Mass Driver, that's a lot of bodies for Mass Driver, and you can just burn your opponent. Now, there are some counterplay cards to that. DD Crows in the format. That is a good counterplay to this, because if you can banish something like a Rodent Totem, or just get even one more material out of graveyard, then that can be a bit awkward for the Frog deck to deal with. Hanawata is another hand trap in this format that basically you discard it and it negates the effect damage coming to you for the rest of the turn, which is very brutal against this deck. It can't win through burn with that. And if your opponent waits to use it when you're actually, burned through all your resources and are going for the Mass Driver play, then you might be too late to actually set up a board of like Duplock or something like that for next turn. So that can be a devastating stopper to the deck. But overall, the deck is just kind of busted. I'm not going to talk like super in depth about the deck breakdown here. You'll see most of the deck in the games that I show off. And I will be linking to the deck list in the description if you want to see more for yourself there. But without further ado, let's get into the games and see how we go. Now, the first game against Kyle JK, and we do indeed win the RPS. So that's GG to our opponent. Not really. I mean, it does take some doing to get there. And the Frog FTK deck can always open FTK. But, we are going to start with the Substode in hand, which is one of the pieces that we like to see. We're going to go with a Moria of Greed here, sending back Treeborn and Beals, and drawing a Unifrog, a Moria of Greed, and a Swap Frog. Swap Frog's perfect. Swap Frog plus Substode plus Water in hand is basically the combo. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to Swap Frog, pitch Rodent to get that engraved, summon out the Substode, and Substode through our deck. Now, we're just going through a lot of frogs here. I'm not going to talk about each individual frog that gets sent. But we're going to go for Flip-Flop, which is the last frog in our deck. It also is, if we want to set up a board here, like if our opponent has a DD Crow for the Rodent here, and we need to like just set up an emergency board after, we can do stuff with that. We've also got Moray to shuffle back 2 frogs from our hand in the deck and do stuff with it. But But we bring back the Ronin so that way we can tribute the flip-flop for a poison and then tribute the Ronin for a swap to send that poison from field to graveyard. So that way it does not, oh wait, I guess we didn't. I guess we sent Substode. Okay, so we're trying to thin out our deck for the draw off poison. Okay, that makes some sense. Or I guess we're just trying to combo off with these multiple poisons. It's been a while since I played these games, so I don't remember the exact lines I did. And also this game, as I mentioned in chat, was my first time doing the combo in a game. So what I'm going to do here actually is I'm going to add the Swap Frog back to hand, pitch a Unifrog to then send the poison draw like that, draw a card, draw into card desk, which is more card draw for if we want to go for more plays. We're going to go to another swap, send the poison draw, and there's our Mass Driver, so that's the end of the game. If we didn't draw Mass Driver, we could have added back the swap, then gone for Moray, sent back swap and dupe, and that would have been good enough. But we're going to add back that swap, and we're going to pitch the dupe to get that engraved for our Ronin, and yeah, and then we're going, their opponent just scoops it up because we've got enough frogs in grave. They don't have DD Crow, clearly. They might have had Hanawata, but, if they have Hanawata, it's basically like either they win or you win, right? There's not really a middle ground there, because generally you've committed your Mass Driver. If your opponent has any removal to get rid of it, then you have to draw it to the other, which can be difficult, so yeah. But anyways, we're going to go on into game 2. We don't know what our opponent's playing, so we don't really know exactly what we're switching up in the side deck. I mean, we're taking on a lot of our FTK cards like Mass Driver and stuff. Seems like our opponent is on Wang Hu in the side, so that is going to be quite annoying for us. We do have Ronin, which can wall up, so we're going to set the Ronin, pass back to our opponent. They're going to attack into the Ronin, and they're going to take 300. So we feel fine about that. We draw 1 for 1 there. We can't really use that, except if we want to just sort of get a Treeborn Engrave, I guess, but like that's not really useful against the Wang Hu. They're going to go for a smashing. We've got this flip-flop here to bounce back the Wang Hu, and they're just going to normal summon out the Wang Hu. So yeah, I think I should have saved flip-flop for when I drew into like a dupe. I think that's something that, with more experience playing the deck, I think I should have done that, but I'm going to go for hand desk here, pitching a flip-flop and a Yuna, drawing into Moray Greed and Salvage. I think I do go for the salvage here to set up Moray Greed, getting back the Unifrog and the Flip-Flop Frog. I think I could have gone for the Ronin from Grave just to sort of have that to set to wall off a bit more. But I wasn't really thinking about that because I was thinking about just getting that Moray online there. But I draw into Swap, Fishborg, and Flip-Flop. Doesn't really help because they can just normal summon out the Wang Hu again. I'm setting the flip-flop in the hope that they normal summon something else, and they did indeed. They normal summoned out a Ryo, and that's going to be good for us, as now we can bounce back that Wang Hu and potentially get some plays going here. So I was very happy that they did that. We'll see if we're able to actually make anything work. We go for a 1-for-1. They've got Oppression. We've got MST for that, though, and that will need go through. So we're able to get out a Substode and make some plays happen here. We're going to go for BrainCon on the Ryo, trying to tribute that. There's a bit of a greedy play, but our opponent is going to let that go through. And we're going to think about this and decide whether we want to attack him with the Ryo or not. We attack him with the Ryo and they book down the Substode, which is unfortunate. I mean, they should have booked down the Ryo earlier, honestly. Or book down the Substode when we BrainConned the Ryo, just to prevent us from actually being able to use Substode effect with priority to tribute off Ryo. That was a mistake on their part, and this is a mistake on our part, attacking in with the Ryo, in case they had the book, as opposed to just using the Substode right away with the Ryo there. So, the mistakes sort of even out. This is realistically what they should have done, and here will just kind of be rough. We summon out the Swap Frog, bring back the Ronin. We go for Fishborg as well to bring back that. And our opponent's going to think here they're going to compulse the Fishborg. Now, as a note, we can't actually make anything with the Ryo with the Fishborg because it's only with other waters as synchro materials. As you'll see in Game 3, and this does go to Game 3, slight spoiler there, I'm not thinking of that condition at this time because in preparing for this event, I was mainly focused on the Frog FTK stuff and not the rest. So I do indeed mess that up a little bit. Our opponent's going to go for a Doomcal into Fishborg. We have a Treeborn Frog to deal with the Doomcal. So, we can set that up, which is what we'll do. We've got a salvage in case we get any other frogs that we want to do stuff with in grave. We're going to go for a Treeborn here just to, trigger the Doomcal and destroy it. And that does indeed go through. We're just going to pass back to our opponent here. If they can flip up the Substode, we're very happy with that because then, you know, it won't be able to be, none of our frogs that we bring out will be destroyed by battle, so we can actually make stuff happen there. They're going to attack into a dupe frog here, flip up a fossil dino, which will pop the rodent totem. It will not pop the set substode because that's been set, so it doesn't remember that it's been special summoned. We draw hand destruction, which we could go for here. We might go for it. Looks like we're not, though. We're just going to set this unifrog, because next turn we could flip that up, because they can't attack into anything except for the dupe frog, so unless they have a way to deal with that, we can flip up the unifrog here and poke in, try and pop a back row. What we'll do. I kept in Mass Driver for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know why I still had things for the FTK in game 2. Again, this was my first time playing the deck. Unfortunately, our opponent brings out a side rust. They're able to attack over the dupe frog. We do get a search with the dupe frog here. It has to be from grave due to Ryo, because Ryo prevents searching from deck. We're just going to add back the flip-flop. But yeah, they're going to attack into the uni and then just pass back to us. We draw a Foolish here, which will not really be that useful for us. We're going to flip up the Swap Frog, send a Ronin just to get that out of the deck, I guess, or maybe in the grave for a salvage play. We're going to send a Unifrog with the Foolish and then go for a hand destruction here. I don't know why we keep the Mass Driver. That's not really going to come up here. So I think that was a mistake on my part. I don't really know what I'm doing at this point, but I just scoop it up and go on to the next game. So I think I greatly misplayed on the side decking phase there, because I should not have done that. I should have sided out of the FTK stuff. If you know you're going second, it's not good to keep in the FTK stuff. So that's a bit of a lesson there for if you're playing the deck yourself, not to do what I did in that game. But I was very green in that game. I get better as the tournament goes on, don't worry. I go for a Moray here, trying to draw into what we need to actually go for the FTK. I draw into another Moray here, so we're going to send those back into the deck and draw 3. We've got hand dust, so we can actually set up some interesting plays. We can set up a Ronin as material, and then if we draw into swap, we can do stuff with that. We're going to send a Fishboard, because that also counts as like just getting material and graves for our Substode. Unfortunately, we don't draw into the Substode, or a way to get into it further, so we're just going to have to go for some plays here. So we're just going to have to go for the Ronin now to protect ourselves. We're going to go for the Fishborg as well, just to get the Treeborn in grave, even though we can't make anything here. Oh, I guess we can make a 5 with that. So we are going to go for a 5 here into a Catastrophe, which is just kind of annoying for them to deal with. And we're just going to pass back to our opponent. Treeborn's in grave, so we can bring that back, so that's nice. We draw into the Mass Driver now. Unfortunately, we don't have the material for it. We're going to go into main 1. And I think the play here probably should be Tribute Death Frog. I mean, there is a world in which they've got TT for that. I guess we're going to go for a Fishborg. And I think here's where I mess up. I think I go for a play with the Catastrophe as material, which you can't do. Oh, no, I don't. I go for an 8 here. So, yeah. So that's fine. So, yeah, I go for Stardust. So that does indeed work out. Maybe I'm misusing this thing. Yeah, I don't know. Either way, I've got Stardust out, so that's pretty good for us here. I can attack in the set in case it's Fossil Dyna. I will tribute the Stardust for that, and then attack in with Catastrophe. I could have held the attack here in case they had a Battle Trap, but in the end phase, I'll bring back the Stardust and pass back to my opponent. So I actually am playing with Fishborg correctly here for a bit. They're going to go for Econ on the Stardust, and that's going to be a bit awkward for us here, because now they can actually clear both our monsters. The ally will activate. And, okay, so I thought what my opponent was doing was... when they attack with Stardust, they were going to use Stardust effect and tribute there, but it looks like they're just going to attack and just clear the Stardust and not use the effect. So that does leave me with the Ally of Justice Catastrophe here, which might signal that the back row is a destruction back row, but they didn't use it on Catastrophe when that attacked alone, so that was a bit interesting. Either way here, this is going to be a bit interesting. We've got Mass Driver as a way to, if we get them low enough, just potentially kill them. We can only bring back Ronin once. We can only bring back the Fishborg. Well, actually, if we bring back Fishborg with Poison Draw, then that's another Frog in grave. So that'll be 1, 2, 3, because we're tributing Treeborn as well. So that'll be 3 times we get to bring back Ronin. That's 1,200 right there. Fishborg is 16. The Treeborn Frog on field is 2,000, and then the Catastrophe is 2,400. So we're very close to being able to bring things back. We're going to go for Ronin here in attack mode. We're also going to go for Fishborg here. We can go for an Armory Arm here, but we can't go for anything else. I think I do mess this up here, or maybe I don't. I bring back another Ronin. Oh, wait, I can't. I remember what I messed up this game. You can't use Ronin Totem for synchro material. That's what I messed up. I didn't mess up the Fishborg restriction. I messed up the Ronin restriction. So, yeah. So, this game is basically invalid because I should not have been able to do these plays. I think we would have been in like a stable enough spot here. Maybe not with a Fossil Dyna actually living, but yeah. Ronin would be a much more busted card if that was the case. Luckily for us, our opponent does win this game through a clutch Magic Drain there on the Mass Driver. And they're able to actually recover from this because the set is Fossil Dyna, and Fossil Dyna will just kill our entire board. And yeah, so this game was scuffed. I apologize for game 3 being scuffed. Luckily, our opponent was able to win to make up for my mistakes. Yeah, I mean, kudos to our opponent for actually playing through a much more busted Frog FTK deck than it should have been. They're going to attack in the Wangu to dodge the lethal hit there. We're going to set Substone. I'm feeling good about this. I'm like, okay, we're in a good spot. But eventually our opponent will be able to get out of this. We flip up the Substone just to make it so that way, our Dupe Frog can't even be destroyed by battle in case they got a Sidra. But they do have plays around this, which you will see here. We switch our Substone to defense. They set 1. We're just sort of draw passing until we can make something happen. They've got a Solemn here. And they're going to stop our Moray of Greed. And so, very intense game for our opponent. Glad that they're able to pull this one out in retrospect. But in the moment, I was like, okay, I just need a couple more things and I'll be able to get there. They go for a smashing on the dupe, tribute out a Sidra, and are they able to attack over the Substone, not attack into our set in case it is another 2k defender. Unfortunately, we can't make really anything happen with the Wangu and the Banisher both up. We're going to try and make things happen. Flipping up that flip-flop, going for a Swap Frog, thinning out the deck by 1, bouncing back the Swap Frog, setting the flip-flop, passing. This doesn't really matter because our opponent has this game on lock at this point, basically. We can bounce back the Ryo there. But yeah, there's just too many floodgates for us to deal with at this point. They're able to summon out a Wangu, set 1, pass back, we draw another flip-flop, so we can survive a little bit longer, but they've got a Compulse, and that will be the end of the game. So I'm very glad our opponent won this very scuffed game 3. But I trust me, the rest of the games are not as scuffed. But I wanted to show off this game to both show how in game 1 we were able to fairly easily get our Frog FTK combo on. For game 2, to show how bad the siding can be if you don't actually side deck and just leave in those dead Mass Drivers. And also for game 3 to serve as a great reminder where like the FTK stuff I think is surprisingly simple, or at least simpler than it may appear. But you do have to keep in mind that like Ronin does have restrictions on it. It's not just the craziest thing imaginable, even though it is very, very crazy. So anyways, that's our game 1. First game of the tournament, we already lost one. It's double elimination. I'm like, okay, probably won't be in this one for too much longer. Our next game here is against Gabibu Balandi, who I believe is also on the Frog FTK. So this will be a bit of a, die roll. We did lose the Rock, Paper, Scissors, so our opponent is going to go first. They're going to go for the Moray of Greed, drawing 3. And then they're going to set 1, pass back. So it seems like they bricked. Will we brick as well? We've got Foolish, Unifrog, Fishborg, so a decent enough hand. I kind of want to set in the Fishborg back in a deck so then I can Foolish it into the grave and just have fodder that way if we get into a Substode. That's what I'm going to do. There is arguments for Foolishing beforehand to thin out the deck a little bit. But I am going to think here. I'm going to go for Moray again, just shuffling those in. I think I should have gone for Foolish before I went for Moray, just to thin out the deck. But I go for Hand Death instead. I think, again, I should have gone for the Fishborg. I guess the way I'm thinking it is because I have Salvage, I'm like, okay, if I draw into other things, I can, salvage back something that I Foolish, right? So that's why I'm holding the Foolish, but I think realistically, I probably should have just fired it. I mean, I don't know. I think there's a world in which this makes sense, but it's just kind of unfortunate. Draw into the Moray there, so now we do have to kind of go for the Foolish play. We're going to Foolish the Ronin and then try and salvage back 2 more. We're going to salvage back the Flip-Flop and the Poison. I think I probably should have Foolished the Fishborg instead of the Ronin because, again, like, Fishborg is free fodder either way here. I guess I'm running low on cards in hand, so better to send Ronin, which has more fodder there, but you want to use up the Fishborg fodder before you use up the Ronin fodder in case there are, like, weird math things that lead to you not being able to get into your FTK stuff. But unfortunately, we, don't draw what we need off the Moray. And that's going to be unfortunate for us. So we're just going to set 1. And now our opponent's able to pop off because they've been able to fix their hand a little bit with the hand destruction that we fired there. And our opponent is going to get their combo online here. Now, if they've got Mass Driver, they still they will win the game, but they still need to find a way into that. If they don't have that, they're going to go for a swap there, sending the Substode, tributing that swap for another swap here. And they're going to send a Poison Draw now, draw 1. Salvage here, so that way they have fodder to special summon out more swaps from hand here. They're going to pitch a poison, special summon out swap, send the poison, hand death here, pitch 2, draw 2. And they're playing True Nade and Heavy in their deck, which is kind of interesting, just to break the board a bit, I guess. I don't think we're playing, or maybe we are, I don't know. I could go back to the deck list right now. I guess we are playing True Nade, but we're not playing Heavy, so, because Heavy kind of conflicts with our Mass Drivers there. So, yeah, but anyways, we are going to be going into game 2. So we are going first, so we don't actually side out anything because we've got the FTK going on. I think we side out True Nade maybe, because that's not really necessary for FTK. But our opponent might be on hand traps here, so that will be unfortunate. We go for the hand desk, which we kind of have to do to unbrick our hand a little bit. And luckily that did give us what we need here. Unfortunately, you generally don't want a hand desk in case they do have hand traps there. You don't want to draw them into the hand traps. So if you can avoid it, it's better to do that. But we do have Substode and Mass Driver. Yeah, our opponent's just going to scoop it up. Had no Hanawata, they say. And yeah, we are able to just make that happen. We are going to go second here. We do actually keep in the FTK stuff. I know that I harped on, not doing that in the first game, but I figured because we're up against Frog FTK, we might as well just keep in the FTK as well, right? Because the only way that we win this is if they brick. And they're obviously not going to be playing like many board breakers or hand traps to stop FTK. So we're just going to play Frog FTK, basically. I think we do bring in the Crows as well, because Crow is good against Frog FTK. And we do have that on our side for a reason. So I think we do bring those in, but besides that, we just keep the Frog FTK stuff, which I think does make sense in this matchup. Opponent's going to go for a card desk here, so we do lose our entire hand and draw some more hand. And speaking of the Crows, there's the Crow. Let's see if it will be able to stop what our opponent's doing. If they're able to get into the combo, they pitch a Beals to bring out a swap here. And they're going to swap, send a Substode, and they've got the salvage, so DD Crow will come in clutch. They're going to target the Toad and the Dupe. We are going to banish that Substode so they don't get back either, because add those targets to hand. So if you get rid of one, the other does not come back either. They're going to just summon out swap, send a Ronin, and pass back. So we are able to avert our own destruction here, but will we be able to get into what we need to get into? Let's find out. We're going to go for 1-for-1, pitching a desk for a Substitoad here. We just bring out an attack, because if we're going to get aggressive here, we want the 100 chip damage when we can take it. We're going to go for a swap here, sending a Ronin. We're going to bring back the Ronin by banishing the desk. And then we're going to think about exactly what to do here, because we could get in some extra damage here. And we also only have 2 poison draws in grave, so we don't have the most draw power left in deck. We're going to bring out the poison draw, and then we're going to go for Ronin again, bring that back, tribute, just trying to thin out our deck even further. But yeah, we're going to just send a bunch of frogs there. We're also chatting in the chat about just frog FTK stuff. But I'm going to bring back another Ronin after bringing out the swap, going into a third swap there. So now we've assembled a fair amount of damage on board, which is why I'm being more fast and loose with our Ronin activations, because we don't need to have the full set of frogs in our graveyard to make the FTK work, because we're getting in for some battle damage here as well. We're going to salvage here, and now we can actually bring back double poison, because we do get an extra normal off bouncing one of these swaps. So we're going to bounce a swap to hand. We're going to normal summon out these poison draw there, pitching a Unifrog to get rid of the poison draw, and then we got more of Greed here, so we can send back a poison and a flip-flop, draw 3 again, and we do draw into the Mass Driver, so that will indeed be lethal here, because we can just, attack in with a swap, get in some damage in the battle phase, and then, have enough to kill with Mass Driver. And I believe we know their hand is swap and then one other, I think, but we don't know the last one. It's probably not like a Hanawata, but if it is, we probably still just win the game here, as they'll be at basically very low resources. So, yeah. But yeah, we're attacking in for a bunch. Now we're going to go for Mass Driver in main 2. They're letting us go through it. So, I guess this is just you know, if they've got Hanawata, they've got Hanawata, but this will indeed do it. So yeah, it looks like the last card was Moray. So yeah, that will be it for this mirror. Very intense one. We might have we very easily could have lost this one if we did not have the DD Crow off the hand desk, or was it hand desk or card desk? It was card desk earlier, yeah. But yeah, if we hadn't drawn into that, then we very easily could have lost the FTK. But you know, sometimes you draw the hand traps and your opponent doesn't. So that is the FTK mirror. And trust me, it won't be the last of the FTK mirror you see in this video. I think the FTK mirror is kind of, you know, not that fun. I mean, it can be fun in its own way. Like, it's fun in the way that, like, gambling is fun, right? Where if you don't care about interaction, you just want to see, like, okay, do I have a better hand than my opponent? Then yes, that's fun. But, like, generally I play Yu-Gi-Oh! For, you know, the interactive part, right? So, I don't necessarily find that sort of gameplay fun. I can't complain too much because I brought the FTK, but I brought the FTK for the video. I wanted to test it out. If I played this form in the future, I'm not sure I'd bring the FTK. I'd probably just bring something that maybe had some hand traps and stuff to deal with the FTK potentially, but yeah. Anyways, I'm facing Kyle JK again because this is double elimination and they lost one. And so we wound up in the same bracket there again. So this is the redemption arc. We'll have to see if I'm able to do better than I did in the first one. And unfortunately on turn one, not able to do much better. So I just have to go for a set Treeborn. Hopefully that makes it to grave. And they've got a Fossil Dyna, so that's going to be annoying. So that Treeborn will not come back. They're going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw a Beel's Frog, so we can actually summon that out, try and crash. And we will attempt to do that. They've got Book, though, for our Beels. I mean, it used up a Book, so we are okay with that. We could have gone for Trunade before this, but I kind of want to save Trunade for when I'm making a huge push. I don't classify this as a huge push. I classify this as, like, it would be nice if it happened, but if it doesn't, it's not the end of the world. And they asked what the defense of that card is. It was 800, so I just let them know. They're going to attack over it with the False Dyna and then attack in for 19. So that Ryo is going to be a little bit annoying here. Now, Salvage can still activate here, which is part of why we were okay, you know, letting the Beel's Frog die, because, you know, we could always salvage it back if we needed. But we're kind of running low on life, so we set a Ronin here and pass back to our opponent, hoping that they can't get over it. They're going to attack in to a Ronin here with the Ryo, take 100, set 1, pass back to us. We draw into another Ronin. We're going to go for salvage here, trying to get back the Beels and the Treeborn here, so that way we can actually start special summon here, eat into one of their monsters here. We're going to attack into it. They've got Sakuretsu, so that will clear the Beels, and they're going to pass back, or we're going to pass back to them. They're going to tribute over the Ryo for a Sidra, attack over the Ronin, attack in with the Fossil Dyna here. Now we're in a bit of a tough spot. You know, we're just not really drawing what we need to here. We're going to set the Treeborn just to get in grave. They're going to attack him with Sidra first either way, so it doesn't really matter for us whether we set Ronin or not. But this way, at least we have Graveyard set up potentially. We draw into Flip-Flop here, which actually does help us because we can Flip-Flop back the Sidra, which will then be quite annoying for them potentially. They're going to attack in to the Flip-Flop with the Sidra. We're going to bounce that back. They do have Reaper and False Dyna, so they will be able to rip a card out of our hand here. They're going to rip a Trunade, which we didn't want to lose there. Yeah, we really did not want the Trunade to be gone because we kind of wanted, in case we made some plays, to be able to get rid of the back row, but unfortunately we did lose it. We draw Moray here, so we're just going to try and get into something good, sending back those poison draws for if we can pull off combo later. We're drawing a Mass Driver, but that's not going to be good enough. We go for Hand Desk here, just pitching cards from hand to grave, hoping that we can get into something. But we're just going to set this Ronin's as opposed to just going for Moray here because this does wall up against what they have. They've lost a Sidra there, so I'm hoping that this will be good enough for the turn. We can only salvage back something to then Moray it back. But given that we are in a really tough spot, I kind of didn't want to go for that just yet. We draw into Substode. We're going to actually go for Moray here to send those back because we kind of want Dupe Frog before we set Substode. We draw to Death Frog, so we could go for that, but into what they probably have here, I don't think it's wise. So I'm going to go for a salvage on Flip-Flop and Ronin. They go for Matic Drain, and we pitch a Mass Driver. We do have another Mass Driver in deck, so I'm okay pitching this now and just sort of having combo potential for later if we can break their board. We're going to set a Ronin here, pass back to them, and they're going to attack in with the Wang Hu. I think I probably should have saved Substode from earlier just to set that up because then I could go for like Flip-Flop plays or something like that later. But yeah, I didn't do it, and I think it's overall fine. I set the Flip-Flop now, but it's a bit too little too late, I think. They're going to attack into Flip-Flop. I'm going to bounce the all three because this is treated as Death Frog on the field. So, yeah, I guess I do get a full board clear there, but they're able to summon out Wang Hu, which is the more annoying of the cards that they had. So yeah, I don't think that this is going to go too well. I could tribute 1 Ronin for a Death Frog, which I will do just to attempt to make something happen. But it's overall not going to be that good. They're going to book down the Death Frog there. And now I'm just going to be in a tough spot. So I'm going to pass back to them. So yeah, this game is not going the best. They're going to attack over our Death Frog that will get banished. They're going to pass back to us. We draw Poison Draw, not what we need here. So yeah, things are not going that well. We're going to go for Ronin and Flip Flop again to potentially set up a play later where we bounce back a bunch. We're going to set that Ronin, pass back to them. If they draw into Sidra, we're in a really bad spot again. We just have to hope that they don't get into that. They go for Fossil Dyna, which will get popped by the Wanghu, so a bit of a mistake on their part. But I don't think it actually ends up mattering here. I could be wrong. I go for a 1-for-1 just to sort of deck thin here. So I just get a Treeborn out of my deck. Oh wait, I can't even activate this because of the cost, so I actually can't do that. Yeah, because it is cost 7-1 monster from Mana Graves. So I'm glad we caught that. This game's a little bit less scuffed than the other game I faced off against them was. We're going to set 1 there, pass back. We draw into Substitute finally. We can set that, pass back. And they're going to attack into our Toad there, which will indeed protect our Ronins as well as other monsters. They're going to tribute for a Sidra, but that might be too little too late from them. We're going to set a Ronin or a Flip-Flop here, because Flip-Flop will be able to bounce their entire board. And they can attack over the Substitute. Yeah, so I guess that doesn't really help us the most. We can go for a Flip-Flop here. We got to think about exactly whether we're going to bounce everything or not, because they can always special summon out Sidra again. But we are just going to bounce everything. And they choose not to special the Sidra. They're just going to normal the Wanghu. So a bit of a misplay from them, I think. We're going to go for the 1-for-1 now, just sending a Treeborn into the grave, and then we're going to set this dupe, pass back. If we can get a dupe lock set up, that would be pretty good for us. They're going to summon out a Doomcal, which is going to be a bit annoying. They're going to attack in that dupe and pass back. We go for Treeborn just to bait out the Doomcal. I actually don't know if that's the right decision, because if I summon out Dupe Frog and Wanghu's effect activates, I think it's a continuous effect, so I don't think the Doomcal would negate the Wanghu, but if it did, then that's definitely a misplay on my part, because I should have left the Doomcal up so I could summon out Dupe Frog and then bait out a Wanghu activation, or bait out a Doomcal popping the Wanghu. So I just set a Dupe Frog here. They go for a Banisher, and now we can flip summon the Dupe Frog, set up the Dupe Lock, and hopefully be in an okay spot. We get card destruction, so we could actually try and deck them out here, which is something that we could do. We are deck thinning though as well. We've got Flip Flop here set, so they can't actually attack into that. They do have a Doomcal though, so that's going to be a bit annoying here. We can't use Swap Frog to just pop that because we've got no zones to summon to. We draw into Deaths. We're going to tribute a Ronin for a Deaths and just try and attack into the Banisher here. They do have Mirror Force. They're able to get rid of that. This does open up a zone for them to set to if we're talking about going for the card destruction play. They're going to flip up a Fossil Dyna. None of these are special summoned, so nothing will happen here. Oh, okay, but the flip summon of it will still activate, which will then pop the Doomcal. So interesting. So yeah, so that was unfortunate for them. So now we can actually flip up our Flip-Flop here, bounce some things. They're going to go for a Solemn on that, though. Very good Solemn from them. And yeah, so we will lose that, unfortunately. We're going to set a Substitute here, pass back. They're going to go for a Ryo, set 1. We draw into Dupe Frog here. We're going to flip up the Substitute just to have it there so our monster can't be destroyed by battle. Unfortunately, that was a bit of a mistake on our part for reasons that you'll see here. They're going to MST one of their own back rows, so that way they can actually activate some stuff. They're going to smash a dupe, and then they've got Econ to switch that other dupe to attack. So that actually will indeed enable them to kill us here. I think they probably would have killed us anyways. I mean, if we look at their hand, they had a Sidra, so they could have just tributed over one of their other things to summon out Sidra, attacked over Ronin and dupe and Substitute. So either way, we were dead here. But yeah, so surprising amount of grind there. Maybe I should have fired card just earlier just to get things out of their hand, but yeah, I think it was fine. Anyways, game 2, because we're going first, we just keep the deck basically the same because it's FTK. So we're just going to try and FTK our opponent here. They might have brought in hand traps, but if they have hand traps, they have hand traps. We don't really have a way to deal with that. So we're just going to go for swap, pitch Ronin, send a Substitute because we do have salvage here, so we can add back a Substitute and a Ronin there. And then we can summon out that Substitute and go for some plays. Now, we don't want to activate hand destruction here because, again, we don't want to give them hand traps. We do have this Mass Driver in hand. We can get the Ronin in our hand into grave by just special summoning out a, swap off it. And yeah, here we go. Swap, and we're going to pitch the Ronin there. And then we're going to send a substode, activate a match driver, and that's just the end of the game. So we kind of drew the nuts there. We didn't have to use hand deaths, and they didn't have Hanawada or DD Crow, and we were able to just win the game there. Game 3, we actually do side, I believe. We side in our side deck because, they're on a deck that shuts down the FTK. So we obviously don't want to play into that by playing FTK stuff. So opponent's going to open with a False Dyna in 2 sets. We have BrainCon and Gores and some 2K defenders, so this is actually a very good start for us. We obviously can't bring out Sidra, but we can set a dupe, pass back to our opponent, and see what they do. They're just going to attack in to the dupe. So they will take 8. They're going to summon out a Doomcal here and pass back to us. We have a TT, so we're going to set a Ronin, set the TT pass. We could have gone for a play like BrainCon, one of their things, summon out Sidra over it. But because I have the TT, I kind of want to wait for them to play into the TT. Because we get value off that here. Because we get the Dupe Frog effect as long as, it's, the TT isn't happening like Chain Link 2 or something. So yeah, this should be pretty good for us. They're going to go for a Sidra here, and we are going to TT that, blow up the board, get the Dupe Frog search, and that will need go through. So I feel good about doing that. We search out a Swap Frog because that thing turned on a lot of our deck, and we can make things happen with it. We're going to think about whether we want to salvage just yet. I don't think we can really do like too much here. So I think honestly the move is just to summon out Swap, send Treeborn, and then just try and poke in with the Swap, which we will indeed do. That will indeed go through. And then main 2, we're going to add that back to hand pass. We've got Gores in hand, so if they attack in directly, we can just Gores them, which is pretty good. We draw Lad as well, which is also pretty good. So we are in a good spot. We've also got Treeborn here, so it defends us against 1 attack here. We can just attack in for 1,000. They're going to Saku the Swap, which I think makes sense, but we can always salvage that back later. They're going to go for a Sidra here, attack in over our Treeborn, and set 1, pass back to us. We draw a Unifrog here. We can bring back the Treeborn. We could have also not brought back the Treeborn in case we wanted to special summon out the Sidra instead. But we're going to bring con their Sidra. They're going to just bounce it back to hand. So I think we were trying to summon out Lad instead of going for the Sidra play just yet. We're just going to bring out a Unifrog here and try and pop a back row, given that they did that. And we're going to pop a Manic Drain, which I'm pretty happy about because that would stop the salvage here. But I go for the salvage because I'm planning on getting back the Swap and using that to bounce back the Unifrog from field to hand. But they do go for a Crevice into the Different Dimension here. Now, I mentioned in the guide that this is very good against Frogs, and this is why, because it's able to just banish those 2 cards there, which is quite unfortunate, and we're just forced to pass back, leaving our Unifrog very vulnerable here. They also summon out Banisher, so that will be the end of our Treeborn Frog shenanigans here. They're going to attack over both, pass back to us, and now we're in a worse spot. Substode is a pretty decent draw. We can summon out Sidra here, and that will get Oppressioned. Oof, that is pretty rough. Luckily, Oppression cannot stop Gores, so that will be pretty good for us. If they play into that, we set the Substode for damage protection here a bit. They're going to attack in with 1 Banisher. We're going to take that 16, drop the Gores, bring out a token in defense. They say, oh, you drew it. We actually had it for a while, but there wasn't really the best time to activate it. I'm not sure if we have had a chance to activate it yet up to this point. We're actually going to go for the Treeborn here because we can summon out Lad, and that should deal with their last back row. So I feel like this should be pretty good. We're going to attack over a Banisher, which should get banished. I don't know if we did catch that. We're going to attack over another Banisher. And then we're going to pass back to them because I want to have things set up for being able to send things to grave if I can. Yeah, and our opponent's just going to admit defeat here. Seems like they drew a Heavy Storm, which was not going to be helpful. They had Manic Drain as well, which, not helpful against Gores and Light and Darkness Dragon. So the side deck plan did work out here. Now, we did draw into a lot of our side deck stuff, so that was pretty nice. But, it does show that the deck can win against anti-meta decks. You just have to side correctly. It won't always win against anti-meta decks, but it does happen from time to time. So moving on, we face off against Shabam 4 in the next game here. And I believe this is another game that is not a Frog Mirror. So that is nice to see that happening. Opponent's going to set 3 and pass back. This is not a format with no Heavy Storm, so you can't play too much into that. We open a pretty good one. We're going to go for a swap here and try and send a Ronin to grave, which we will do. We're going to bounce back that swap, and we're going to go for Ronin. See if they've got a response to that. They do have a response. They've got the Royal Oppression here, so now we know that we can't go too crazy here. We could still summon out Uni and attack directly, but it won't get the pop. So it's not really worth doing that right now, in my opinion. They're going to set another card here, pounce back. We draw another uni, which is kind of funny. We're just going to normal summon out this swap frog here and send a Treeborn frog to grave. And then we're going to bounce back that swap, pass back. Treeborn should be able to play around oppression because they could just pay 800 for it, every time it activates, but you can activate it as many times as you want in your turn. So, it's not really worth it for them. They're going to go for an Emmer's Blade here. So it seems like they're on X Sabers. And they're going to attack in for 13, pass back. We draw a Moray here, which is pretty good. We're going to bring back that Treeborn Frog. And we could potentially pop the Oppression here if we want to, which it looks like we are going to be doing. We're going to go for Unifrog, attack directly, and that will indeed go through. We're going to think about whether we want to pop the Oppression in the end. No, we do pop the Oppression, which I think does make sense. We're going to go for a Moray here and try and make things happen. We have Salvage to bring things back if we don't draw any monsters. Although if we don't draw any monsters, that's kind of rough. But yeah, we do draw into a monster to go for 1/1 and make things happen there. So we're going to go for 1/1, bring out a Substode, see if that's fine. We're going to go for Substode, tributing the Treeborn, bring out a Beel's Frog here, tributing out that to bring out a Swamp Frog. So we're just going to basically go through the combo. We have to be a little bit more careful here, given they've got a back row, but they didn't actually use that back row to do anything. So I'm not too afraid of it. So I'm just going to go for like basically full combo. They are a little bit lower than they would be normally, so we don't have to commit everything into the combo. We can actually also set up a Substode and Duplock here and still kill them, I believe, through what they have. So we're going to start going for the Ronin plays. Bring back a Ronin there. Activate Mass Driver. Attempt to tribute the Ronin. They do have MST for that, so it looks like they did indeed have a way out of that. And then we contribute the Swamp Frog, tribute a Poison, and then go for a dupe. And have a pretty good setup for next turn. We're going to go for Salvage here. Bring back a Swap. And bring back a swap. Oh, I guess we're also potentially going for Hand Death. I guess we are getting greedy with it. We only have 12 cards left in deck. So I guess this does make some sense here, but I don't know. This is a bit greedy for my taste. We draw into Dupe and Moray. We probably should have gone for that Dupe out of the deck to just mitigate the chance of that happening. Again, I'm still inexperienced with the deck, but we do draw into Mass Driver there, and that should be the end of the game. Yeah, unless there's like Crow or Hanawata, it will be the end of the game. And yeah, that's going to do it there. So pretty good game one. And that does show that even if you don't win turn one, you can either set up a good board, which we did have. If we, got Hanawata or something, we did have a very formidable board there. That our opponent would have had a bit of difficulty breaking through. And yeah, so game two, we bring in some side deck cards. We bring in the Quick Draw. We bring in the Lad. Things like that. Our opponent's going to set 4, pass back to us. We don't have the means. Well, we've got a Quick Draw in Substode at least, so we could go for a big push here, but we might not want to. We're going to pitch a Unifrog for the Quick Draw, see if that goes through. We're going to summon that Substode, see if that goes through. It looks like it will. We're going to tribute the Quick Draw for a Treeborn, and it looks like that will go through as well. Okay, so we can tribute that. Send a swap and see if this goes through. It looks like it will. So that back row, I don't know what it is, but it's definitely not the most threatening right now. We're going to just set up some Ronins in grave, bring out a dupe. We're going to tribute a Substode for a Unifrog because I guess we don't have much draw power here. And I think because we're going second, we side out a lot of our FTK stuff. So we're just going to go for a pretty standard dupe and Unifrog play here and then just try and pop a back row. We hit a bottomless, so I'm happy about that. And we're just going to pass back to our opponent. We don't want to clog up our board with something that won't allow us to bring Treeborn back. So I feel like it's fine just doing that. They're going to set 2, pass back to us, and we're going to summon another Unifrog, just try and eat up more of their back row. That was a mistake. I wanted to attack directly, and, I immediately corrected it, so my opponent, didn't really mind it too much. This is damage, so they won't be able to activate Crevice here, I believe. I think that's the case. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's correct, so they won't be able to activate Crevice. But yeah, I give them the chance to potentially Crevice before damage, but they wouldn't Crevice before damage. Makes sense. You're probably okay getting the Crevice hit as opposed to a different card. We're going to hit a Starlight Road there and pass back. I don't know why I didn't go for Treeborn in standby. I guess not to clog up the zones. But I think that was a bit of a mistake on my part. To be fair, they would have Creviced in response to Treeborn probably, but I wasn't playing around Crevice there. I was just sort of trying to poke in for damage. Anyways, they're going to go for a cat here for an Airbellum plus Dark Soul, which is a bit scary here because they could go for a Bryanak and, pitch something to bounce the dupe, and then that'd be annoying. False Roll, oof, that is rough here. And they've got Raihigura as well. although that really won't do anything for them here. They're going to go for a Goyo here, which will be able to take the dupe, and they're able to get over that, use the Goyo effect to then take the dupe. I believe that dupe will still trigger here. I could be wrong. It looks like dupe will still trigger. I'm going to search out a swap, and they're going to attack over a uni, and they're going to attack over a uni. And they have to attack over with the Airbellum because the Raigura actually can't beat over a Unifrog. They're going to sync off with the Goyo and the Airbellum. So now they've got a Gotems, and they can hand rip us here. They're going to tribute the Raigura and pitch the Moray. They're going to tribute the Faltrol and pitch a TT. So that's a bit unfortunate. And then they're going to decide whether they actually want to tribute the Gotems or not. Looks like they're just going to pass back, get the Dark Soul Search for Full Helm Knight, and that's going to be pretty good. We draw 1 for 1, which is pretty good. They're going to go for a Mind Crush here, targeting Swamp Frog because they do know about that. And that's going to be a bit rough for us here. So we can bring back the Treeborn Frog now. So that's something. And then we can actually go for 1 for a Substoad to make some plays happen that way. And we will indeed do that. Bring out that Substoad and trying to make some stuff happen. So we go for the Substoad there, tributing the Treeborn for another Treeborn just to get that into the graveyard as well. This actually doesn't play well into Crevice. So I think I probably shouldn't have brought that Treeborn into play. But I just set up the dupe there. I go for a Ronin banishing a uni, tribute that Ronin for another dupe. So that the dupe block is set up. I go for Ronin again to bring that back, tribute the Ronin again, and then go for a flip-flop here. So now I'll have a way to deal with their board next turn. Yeah, I think I don't have, I've gone through all my unis, so I can't really bring out a uni to pop their, set. But a Resolve flip-flop here will be pretty good if I'm able to set it up. I go for a Treeborn Frog there. I go for flip-flop, try and, bounce their board. They've got Solemn for that. I can go for Salvage here, though, bring back a Unifrog and a Swap Frog here. So I can try and pop that last back row before I go for another Substoad play, and I will indeed be able to get in. Pop that last back row, which is just an MST. Go for flip-flop, and now just set that and pass back. And this is a very, very hard board for our opponent to deal with. They could have negated the Unifrog attack with the full-on, but they're probably saving that for if they have a good back row this turn. But this is an enormous think from them. So that is always scary to hear when your opponent does that. They have a couple options available for them. They can go for a 5 here, but there's not really a good 5 that actually deals with what is on board here. So, yeah, I don't envy their position here trying to figure out what to do. They're going to summon out Faltrol. So, okay, that explains why they had a bit of a think there. So now they can actually make some stuff happen potentially, but they can't do a Brio play because they got no cards in hand. They know the flip-flop Frog is coming later, so I don't know. What would you do in this situation? I guess you can go Raigura and get a card back to hand, which is probably what they'll do. So they're going to go for Raigura here, and now that actually does open a way into Brionac because you can sync off with the dupe and then go Brio there. So very clever play from our opponent. They're going to go for Faltrol here to then bring back that Raigura again to then get the card back. They're going to tribute the first Faltrol to just rip the swap out of hand. Yeah, okay, now that makes sense. Now they're able to get back the Faltrol off the Raigura, but I think this actually did screw them up because now they don't have a tuner to make some more stuff happen. I think they can still go for Gotem's tribute. Or no, I don't think you can tribute the X-Saber there if I've got no hand. So I think now they realized that Raigura was not the play there. I offered to let them change it because it's like all known information, but yeah, it's looking like it might not matter. They can still do some stuff, but it seems like they were lagging a bit. But they're going to go for a Brionac, pitching to bounce a Dupe Frog here. Now, they still can't get over what we've got here. Yeah, I'm not really sure how they would be able to get 2 cards in hand here. So either way, I think that it doesn't really matter. Because they could rip the dupe, but realistically, it's not going to make a difference here because they can't get 2 cards in hand here. They're going to search out, they didn't Dark Soul this turn. So yeah. They did search out another thing with Dark Soul. So it's been a long game, folks. So that's why, both of us are kind of having a bit of difficulty remembering what happened, but we are able to bounce back their entire board there with the flip-flop, tribute a Treeborn for a Death Frog here, and that will be exact lethal because that's 24 plus 4 plus 200, so that will indeed be lethal. So Yeah, very intense game here against X Sabers. And I'm not really sure our opponent can really deal with what we got here. And that shows the power of the Frog Engine, even if you don't want to do an FTK, which I understand that the FTK is something that many duels do not like, because the FTK sort of takes the game out of your skill expression, right? Because, basically an FTK lives or dies by whether you get the combo, right? And other decks can also live or die depending on what you get. But when most people play Yu-Gi-Oh, they often like to just sort of do skill expression through meaningful interaction over the course of a couple turns. And this deck sort of deprives them of that. So if you just want to play the Frog Engine as a very powerful engine in a deck that requires more skill expression, you can do that too, because Substitute plus Ronin is just busted. And Frogs have many, many utility cards and many, many ways to just keep hanging on and grinding out the opponent. So, I mean, Ronin is just so busted, no matter whether you play an FTK or not. I hope that this game sort of showed that. The last game that I played in the tournament was actually in the losers finals. So this was, whoever wins this goes on to face the person who's gone undefeated throughout the rest of the double elimination tournament. I'm facing off against Dunko Seka. And yet again, we've got another Frog FTK game. So this is going to be an FTK mirror, which is unfortunate because, as I mentioned, the mirror is kind of just who gets what, Our opponent's going to open with a Moray there, shuffling some back, drawing 3. They're going to set 1 pass back. We draw into a 1-for-1, pitching a unit for a Substitute, and that should be probably good enough, unless they've got hand traps, which I doubt they do. We still need to get into the mass driver, so that is important. But, if we can do our full combo here, we probably will be able to get into it. We've got salvage as well, which helps as well. And we can just poke in for 400 damage here as well, because, it's, we get a battle phase here. We're going to tribute that swap for a dupe. We're going to bring back a card with Ronin, because we basically get a free Ronin search here that we don't need to worry about for the total 8,000, because we poked in for 400. I think I probably could have brought out a second uni here and attacked twice. I think that was a mistake on my part, because I wasn't attacking with the swap frog anyways, so I might as well just done that. And made things easier on myself. But I'm going to special summon out a swap here, sending a poison draw. Special summoning out another swap, sending another poison draw. I should have probably just gone through the swap. Well, no. So I was like, basically swap was the last frog in my deck, I believe. So it makes sense to keep it in deck to then tribute the last remaining swap to send the poison draw. But unfortunately, I drew it. So that's going to be rough. I draw into a salvage, so I can add back poison draw and poison draw. And I have not used the extra normal off the swap, so I'm going to normal summon that, pitch the other poison draw, send a poison draw, and then there's the mass driver. I had hand death as well in case we needed to do it, but this should be good enough. I'm going to pitch the Unifrog for that swap there, send a Ronin, and now, this is the end of the game. I believe, at least. I think, yeah, this is definitely the end of the game. Yeah, I've got all the frogs there. Poked in for 4 on top of that. Yeah. So that's going to be game 1. Exciting gameplay, right? Yeah, it's just kind of rough. I mean, I'm not saying that the FTK takes no skill. You do have to, order your plays in the way that makes it the most optimal chances of getting into mass drive or whatever other combo piece you need. But, I don't know, man. It's just once you do it a couple times, it becomes very clear how to do that part of the deck. And again, there is some skill expression where if you reach a certain point in the combo where you're I don't think I can get to mass driver, or I think my odds of getting to it are too low, and then you want to pivot into just building a board that can win the game on its own, right, without the mass driver cheese, then that is where I think the skill expression of this deck comes through. And that's the part of this deck that I'm definitely not the best at, right? That is something that I will definitely need a lot more time to actually figure out if I wanted to devote the time to becoming a good Frog FTK player. But frankly, I don't really want to put the time into that. It's just it's just kind of rough. Yeah, that's why this is basically going to be the only video for Frog format, because it's just kind of, I don't know, it's kind of boring. The other formats following this can play a lot of the other decks that are in the format, just without Frog FTK being something that you have to see 1 in every 2 or 3 games. So, yeah, it's just rough. And the deck does not have 100% consistency with the FTK, as you've seen over the course of these games, but it has enough consistency with the FTK and enough of a backup plan that it's basically, if not the best deck, it is a deck that people will play in tournaments, because you can do very well in tournaments. In fact, bit of spoiler alert for this tournament. The tournament was actually won by Frog FTK. And so you know, that doesn't mean it's the best deck in the format. I always say, especially in a smaller tournament like this, where there are less people actually, you know, playing and you get less games total, so you don't need to rely on luck for as many games as a larger tournament would require. But I mean, it is possible to do okay with it, right? And it's definitely more consistent than other FTKs that have happened before it, except maybe in dad return format. But yeah, it's just a rough deck. So, but yeah, sorry I haven't really spoken through this combo. I think it's basically, you can see from the combo, like they're basically doing what I did before in some of the other games, and they do indeed pull off the Frog FTK combo, digging pretty deep into their deck. They've only got 6 cards left in deck, which means they've done a fair amount of card draws, and we have not drawn into things like DD Crow. So, unfortunately, did not work out for us there. And they even mentioned in chat that they messed up at one point not fully deck thinning. And again, like, you don't necessarily even have to do that all the time. I mean, obviously, it's the optimal thing to do, and you want to be doing that. I'm not trying to encourage people not to do that in their games, but, like, I mean, you know, the deck is good enough that you don't even necessarily need to do it. We do indeed draw just basically full combo. We don't have the Mass Driver yet, but we do summon out Substitute, just go through basically our entire deck, trying to find it, ending on the dupe there, going for Ronin, banishing that to bring out a Ronin, going for a poison draw here, going for another Ronin activation, bring that out, going for another poison draw here, and now we go for Swap Frog here, being able to draw one. We draw into Quick Draw, which I did bring in over True Nade. That's the sort of one thing I decide. If I know I'm going first, I take out the True Nade and I bring in Quick Draw because it's just further extension. But unfortunately, we did draw it here. We're going to use our extra normal on a Unifrog there just to get another body to bring out the poison draw. We're going to send the poison draw. We draw 1 for 1. We're going to go for that for the Fishborg there. And now we can go for a Swap Frog, send that last poison, and draw into a Substitute, which is not ideal. But we can bounce back to Substitute, go for a card desk. They do have the Hanawata Chain Link too. So yeah, we won't be able to win this turn, which is going to be rough. We do draw into the Mass Driver. So they did not have the Hanawata. Then we would have won here. But unfortunately, they did. And that's going to be unfortunate for us. We set the Mass Driver just as a bluff. But, I mean, it should probably be over here. Yeah, I think I probably shouldn't have set the Mass Driver. But I guess if they've got hand us, I don't want to turn that on for them. And also, if they've got card destruction, I don't want to give them something there as well. But yeah, this should probably be over. They're going to send their poison draw, bring back the Toad, and they're going to attack in to our Substitute there, crash that, attack over our Fishborg there, and now they're going to bounce back that swap. We draw into Moray here. I think we still have lethal, potentially, with the Ronin and the Mass Driver. I'm trying to calculate. Yeah, with Fishborg, I think we also have it. So we pitch for Fishborg. Unfortunately, they've got Crow for that. So I was trying to bait out the Crow with the first Ronin, but they did, buy their time, which I think made sense. And unfortunately, we won't be able to do much more here. So we're just going to pass back to them, see what they do. Yeah, it's not going well. They've got Substitute there, so they're able to bring out a Unifrog. They won't be able to pop here because Substitute is not a frog. But they are able to deal 400. And yeah, it does happen. I mean, I am also guilty of not reading all the frog cards in mass detail because the cards are just so individually powerful that it's sometimes easy to forget their restrictions. But I'm just going to go through with the deck thing there, go for some swaps, sending Ronin, sending Substitute, going on a dupe frog there, pitching a dupe for a swap, and then there's the Mass Driver. So yeah, that'll be the end of the game. So yeah, I mean, that's the frog mirror. I mean, I don't really know what to say here. Like, I basically comboed. My opponent had hand traps. They were able to stop the combo, and that's how it was, right? I passed back to my opponent. They were not able to combo for the first tournament. Next turn, I tried to combo. They had a hand trap, so that's what it was. It's just like, it's just rough. And yes, I did have the ability to like go for a fair bit of the combo here with my graveyard setup as it is. Substitute or Ronin Totem would be 1, and then let's just count through the rest. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, which would not be enough to kill them. That would have been 7,200. I needed the extra 2 activation of Fishborg to actually get to 8,000. and the DD Crow did stop that. So unfortunately, that was the end of the game. If my opponent did not have Hanawata or DD Crow, the game wouldn't have been any more satisfactory in the end. It just would have ended with me winning because I would have been able to combo off. So it's like, I mean, I don't know. I guess people do like this sort of gameplay sometimes, but to me, it just feels kind of unfulfilling. And that's why this is going to be my only video for Frog format, because it's just like, I think it's unsatisfactory on the whole. And again, Frog FTK, it's not like a niche deck. Like, for instance, there's a DM era format called Warrior format that does have Scientist FTK in the format. Definitely not as consistent as Frog FTK, but it is around. It has done okay in previous Warrior events. But again, those are small events, so it's tough to say how that would translate to larger Warrior events. But you're not going to see it all the time in the format because it is very, very feature famine. It's even more feature famine than Frog FTK. Because it didn't really have a backup plan. If it doesn't draw into its stuff, it just loses, right? And so, like, I'm okay with Warrior format because the deck does not come up in many games, and in the games where it does come up, it's not necessarily consistent enough to win an event consistently, right? Like, it has won a previous small event in the past, but I made a video about that at the time where I mentioned that I don't necessarily think that means that the deck is tier 1 in the format. Just the event was very small, and it takes more testing to actually figure out whether the deck is tier 1 or not. If it does become tier 1 eventually, then maybe that'll adjust my opinion of it. But again, it's a small format, so it's tough to say. Frog FTK is definitively tier 1 in this format. And I think I can say that because even if you miss the combo, which you do sometimes, as we've seen, just having the end board to fall back on is so good. And so a lot of people, I think, will bring Frog FTK to the format, especially because the format is called Frog format. And the name of the format often brings people playing the decks into being, right? And so we see that here. And so this is sort of a format where even if it's not the best deck, which I don't know if it is the best deck or not, it's just definitely very, very good. It is a format defining deck, and thus, it makes for kind of an unfortunate format. Unless you like this sort of FTK format, in which case, have fun playing it, but it's definitely not for me. Now, I want to show off the deck representation of this event before I dive into the finals, because I do want to show off the finals of the event as well. I think that'll be edifying for people, especially because we just showed off basically the semifinals in a way. But for deck representation, we did see 3 X-Saber players, 3 Frog FTK players, 2 Anti-Meta Stun players, 2 Frog Monarch, 1 Inferni, 1 Gravekeeper, and 1 Diva Frog. So we did see actually a fair spread of decks here in the event. However, of the 3 FTK players who played, 2 of them made it to the top 3. So it's like, it's not necessarily the best sign of health for the format. So we're hopping in to the grand finals here between Jim Bob and Dunko Seka. Let me mute that so I can talk over everything going on. But this is the end of a double elimination tournament. Jim Bob has gone undefeated so far, and they are going first here, which is good for them against the FTK. But in order for Dunko Seka to win the whole event, they actually need to win 2 matches in a row here, which is going to be easier said than done, especially Jim Bob going for a lot of X-Saber plays here turn 1. They're able to rip out a Substode from hand. They're able to tribute the Goblins as well, rip out a Moray of Greed. And so Dunko Seka starting on 3 cards in here, facing down a TT. Not looking the best for them as we start off here. They do have Moray, though, so they're able to shuffle back 2 Frogs, draw 3, 1 for 1, pitch a Poison draw, going for Substode there. Will that go through? No Prio, TT on that. But we've got the salvage here, so that should probably salvage a little bit here. I think, honestly, Jim Bob maybe should have held TT. If they held TT, it makes sense to do that, because if they just go for Substode, tribute Substode for just a random other frog, there's not enough gas to actually make something happen. So you wait for the second frog to come down that actually does something. So then you TT, they've used more resources there, and that's awkward. Now, I don't think that would have mattered here, because what would happen is basically they summon out Swap. I guess it would have mattered because they would have had a normal summon the Swap, which then takes away the normal summon from the Toad there. So, yeah, I guess that does matter a fair bit. Because then they can't summon out the Substode again. But yeah, they're going to go for the Substode into the Treeborn and send a Treeborn, go for a Uni, and go for another Uni there. So it still would have been a fine spot for Dunko here, because they would have, it depends on what Jim Bob's next draw was. But realistically, like, this would still be, they'd be able to do all this next turn, right? There are some draws that Jim Bob potentially gets out of this with, like especially if they draw something good off of the legacy. I think either way here, the game is kind of over. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of damage in, especially because like swap up tagging in for 1,000 is also pretty good. Gotham's would not have helped them here. Yeah, so they would have had to draw like pretty well for the next card in hand to actually stop this sort of play from going on. But yeah, as a note, it's still not the end of the game because they don't have combo. They're just going for a board here that is going to be very difficult to out, which again, Frog can do. Royal Oppression here would have actually stopped what Dunko did on the following turn. So actually that would have been, yeah, so this actually would have made probably a fairly big difference. Now, how big of a difference is up for debate because, Dunko could have potentially drawn into a 2K defender after going for the swap play, or they could have played around an impression by like setting substitute or something like that. But yeah, either way, the sort of shotgun of the TT there definitely came back to bite them a bit. But yeah, the Gotham's comes down there. Flip-flop does not target, part of why it's so busted. And so, yeah, the Gotham's will not actually help there. So that's going to be the end of the game. So, game one could have potentially gone a different way. I mean, I think Dunko was still in an okay spot there. But it definitely would have been a bit trickier to navigate that oppression. But now we're in game two. So we'll have to see if Frog FTK is able to get through this one. They're going to go for a breaker here. And they're going to breaker pop the back row. That will be a Mask of Restricts, a very good pop. They're then going to take that Airbellum, try and rip a card out of hand, which it looks like will go through. So they're going to rip a Crevice, which is pretty good to get rid of. But now they can go into a 7 here. If they've got Arcanite, they can do that. Or they can go into something else entirely. Going for the swap there, bouncing back, going for dupe, and going to a 5 instead for Catastrophe. I don't know. I maybe would have gone for Arcanite if they've got it, because Arcanite's just multiple pops on board after that. But I do also get this. You've got Treeborn Engrave now. You've, still got the swap, and you've got the breakers. It's a body. So I get this too. But the opponent's going to set a TT there, pass back. True Nade should probably do it unless they TT this, and it looks like they will TT that. But I mean, that's still probably fine. Crow on the Treeborn though. Ronin here is going to bring that back, but they've got Substode in hand, so this will probably be the end of the game. They're just going to go through a lot of their deck for a Death Frog. Bring back a Ronin, tribute that for another Death Frog, and then you can just tribute the Substode for a swap, and that'll be the end of game one. So we're going on to game two, and as a note, in that match, no game was won by FTK. The Frog deck, again, it has backup plans, and it was able to leverage those backup plans into victories. And that was just 2 games. So, like, even if game one, Jim Bob potentially did the TT later on in the turn, it might not have turned out in Jim Bob's favor over the course of the match. But we're going into the second match here. It looks like Dunko's going first, which is very good for the Frog FTK player here. Drawing into hand deaths, pitching 2. They're going to go for Treeborn in the standby phase. You always want a hand deaths, in draw or in standby if you've got the Treeborn to pitch with it. So it makes sense there. Going for swap, sending a Substode because they've got the salvage. They're going to bounce back the swap. I think this might have been a bit of a misplay on Dunko's part, because with the salvage, you want to be able to bring back that Substode. But I guess if they don't avoid a special summon it out, it doesn't really make a difference here. So yeah, I guess it really didn't matter. So it's just getting set up for next turn. So yeah, it's probably fine. The opponent is going to be able to pop off with a Summoner Monk into Airbellum play here. Bring out a False Roll on top of that, going for a 7 for Airbellum to then stack the top of the deck again. Getting a rip with the Airbellum here is going to be brutal as well. So yeah, this is going to be a bit tough for Dunko to deal with. That being said, they will be able to salvage now, so that's pretty good too. Although if they rip the entire hand, that's going to be quite unfortunate. Yeah, they're going to rip 2. Leaving the Moray. Moray definitely not what Dunko wanted to get left there. And passing back. Yeah, drawing into a second Moray. And that Treeborn will come back to just provide a little bit of a chump block, but it won't matter probably here because that False Roll is in hand. Summon out the Dark Soul, False Roll, and then, yeah, that does it. So that will be it for game one. So the Frog FTK not able to win in game one. And that is sort of the downside of having to win 2 matches in a row as an FTK deck, is that oftentimes it is sort of out of your hands in terms of the luck factor there, which is part of the risk of playing an FTK deck in general. But again, part of what makes this FTK deck different from the rest is because it can play along different axes if it needs to. They're going to go for a swap. They got the Substode, they got the Mass Driver, so unless there's a Crow or a Hanawata, that will be the end of the game. Now, we know, watching from home, seeing the replay, there is a Hanawata and a Crow, so this will be fine for Jim Bob here. Yeah, they do have to end on a Frog. They're going to go for the Unifrog there, tribute that, banish for the Ronin, and that Ronin is gone. So now what to do? What to do? That is the question. They're going to banish for another Ronin, bring back that Ronin, and then going for Mass Driver again. Hanawata is going to come down here, and that's going to be a bit awkward. But Dunko is able to go into a Poison Draw, bring back that Ronin again, go for a Flip-Flop from deck, get that engraved, go for another Ronin, go for the Ronin for a swap to send a Poison Draw a card here. I don't necessarily think they need to go this line. I would have just maybe gone for like a Duplock and been fine with that, but I guess this is fine. Yeah, they're going to send a dupe with the swap to search out a Death, and then they're going to tribute that Death Frog tribute the Swap Frog for a Death, bring back a Ronin here, tribute the Ronin for a Unifrog, pitching a hand Death for a Fishborg here. So they're making some synchro plays happen. Going for the Stardust there. And now they've got Stardust. They've got a dupe block. This is going to be very, very hard to deal with. So yeah, it's a bit tricky. The Hanawata tried. The DD Crow tried. But with Stardust, dupe block, flip-flop there, that's going to be a bit tough, especially with a Trunade as well. Not looking too good. Rhoda is going to be something for Full Helm Knight that can negate one attack. But it won't matter if Flip-Flop just flips it back. So we're going to get Trunade here. Crevice is going to come down, banish a Ronin and a Treeborn there. Bounce back the Driver as well. Flip up that Flip-Flop to bounce back the Full Helm. And salvage as well for dupe and swap. I think, honestly, maybe you go for a Uni and swap. I guess it's more damage. So yeah, they're just going to summon out the swap and send a Substode, just thin out the deck even more. Tack in for 1,500 and 2,500. So that's going to be a fair bit of damage. And I think they might have enough to now go for, I guess with Ronin gone, you don't really have enough. Yeah, so I'm going to save that. Allow the Treeborn to come back next turn. And yeah, Jim Mob going to draw, but it's not going to do it there. So going on to the all-important game 3. And again, we haven't seen Frog FTK win with FTK in this double matchup, but it's still able to win, which is part of what makes it so busted. And yeah, it's just kind of unfortunate here. TT to protect the Mask of Restrict, which makes a lot of sense. Going for a 1-for-1. And Jim Mob is going to get out a Substode here. And on res, they're going to go for a Master Restrict. I think if you want to do that, you have to chain it to the 1-for-1. Because with priority in this format, you can go Prio, Substode, Tribute. And then Master Restrict will be too late to activate. But it doesn't really matter here. Because they're not using Prio. They're just going to set a Raigeki break and pass back. And yeah, they're going to set 2, pass back. Raigeki break here on the restrict, so that way they can actually get their tributes off. Go for the salvage here. No crevice set, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, I feel like you want to set crevice, but I guess with the restrict up, you're like, okay, if they heavy me, I want to save the crevice for later. But yeah, if they heavy you, it's probably game over either way. So you probably want to crevice there. That would have stopped the salvage, but I don't think it would have mattered too much here. They would have chained crevice to salvage, and then it wouldn't matter because you've still got the Substode to tribute and then go for things. So yeah, I think either way here, this is probably going to be the end of the game. If it is the end of the game this turn, might not be. Very well could be sort of, again, going for a more conservative play. But yeah, they're going to go for a Death Frog here. So yeah, it looks like they are going to go for a more conservative play here. And bring out another Death Frog as well. They're getting in for a fair bit of damage, attacking in with Uni, that will go through, so it will pop the dust, attacking over the set with Death Frog, so it will be a Dark Soul, which will get Jim Bob a search here in the end phase, but It might not matter here. Tributing one Death Frog for a dupe, tributing that Unifrog for a flip-flop, summing out the other dupe, and then passing back. This is going to be a very, very tough board for Jim Bob to deal with. They can still search out a full helm, so that's something, but unfortunately, oppression is going to be a bit too little too late. Just setting 3, passing back, and hoping, but it's unfortunately not going to matter all too much. They're going to go for Substode there, and that does indeed stop the Substode, or the oppression there to stop the Substode. Death Frog is able to attack in for 19, and they're going to set a flip-flop. I'm not sure why they didn't switch dupe to defense just to play around Mirror Force, but it looks like it's still going to be fine. Flip-flop there, so now they're going to switch dupe to defense. They're going to bounce back that full helm attack in for deaths, and that's going to be 1900. Will there be any way to stop the onslaught here? No, there will not. Just another crevice. So yeah, this lock is just a bit too strong, and that's going to do it for this game. So yeah, it's kind of rough. I mean, you can quibble about some of Jim Bob's plays, I think mainly in the first game of game 1, but other than that, I feel like it's largely okay. Like, even if they had set crevice here, they probably would have shotgunned it on the salvage, which I think would have made sense, right? And so I don't think it actually would have ended up mattering here all too much. Although you could argue that if they'd held it for like when the Substode was like, you know, getting swaps out to send for Ronin, and then Ronin wanted to do stuff, then you could argue that that would have been a better way to hold it. But, you know, looking at the board they were able to set up, I think with the salvage, I think that would have been able to still set up that board, you know, even through a crevice on the Ronins. I think that they were able to set up like a really, really good board, and it would have been tough to crack either way. So I think like the only game where a misplay that I saw would have potentially mattered was game 1. And so I think Frog FTK, you know, just showing off how good it is. Like, oh, this deck is kind of crazy. And I think that is a deck that, again, will define the format for better or for worse. And so that's why this is going to be my one video on Frog format that I'm going to show off. So we're going straight from guide to one gameplay video to another guide. So apologies for that. Generally, I have more gameplay videos for formats, but this one, I can't do it. I can't do it. But I hope that you enjoyed this show off of some FTK sort of gameplay here. The next format should be a lot better than FTK's. Promise me. Or not promise me. I promise you. Yeah, this is just kind of a rough one. But we're through it now, so we don't have to worry about that. And yeah, so hopefully the next video will be more enjoyable. But I hope that you enjoyed as always. If you want to play games in this format, if you're that type of person, you know, over the YGO from Terror Discord server, linked in the description down below. You can also play games in any other format that I feature on the channel. Also, you know, like, comment, subscribe, do all those good YouTube things. If you want to support me directly, I also have a Patreon, linked in the description down below. For the Patreon, you get a shout out in these videos. So big shouts to Rincewind, Porkchopkin, Bread Knocker, Tyler Compton, GeoMyFS, Dump Truck, Scout Zero, and Damon Hass. It means a lot that y'all support me this way and encourage me to make more videos like this one in the future. That's going to do it for me today. I hope you enjoy as always. Until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero. I'm signing off. Peace.